So this video is going to be on geo-hierarchy tracking. It's going to cover a little bit of mesh tracking and a little bit of having a GeoH object driven by a tracker, a supervised tracker. This is something that can get extremely complicated, and this video is very basic and fast, just to see how this style of tutorial might go. So if you enjoy it, let me know, it'd be great, but let's get into this. Okay, so first up, let's go ahead and add our box. Okay, so we're going to head over to the 3D tab, hit F4, get our quad view, and let's go ahead and drop in a box right here that roughly matches the size of the box we're trying to match in the shot. And I'm going to simply move it up, scale it down. You don't have to be that accurate at all with this at this stage because we're actually just going to pin this instead. Okay, so before I start pinning, I'm going to go back into quad and hit rotate E on my keyboard and adjust this box so it's a little bit closer. The closer it is, the better it's going to be to pin later. So now that I have this is totally fine. I'm going to hit F3, and over here we have our toolbars toolbar. If you don't have this, right click, come to view, and come to toolbars, sorry. And there's your toolbars toolbar, but you also have all the stuff right here. So I'm going to hit pinning. Hey, there we go. Now we got this nifty little window. So how does this work? I'm going to go ahead and hit create edit pins and start control clicking some vertices and dragging this around. I'm control clicking just because I want to snap to a vertice. So once I get all my corners here, notice that the fourth corner is not going to look too good. Yeah, it looks pretty bad. So that's because my box, of course, does not match the physical box in the shot. Go figure. So I got to start freeing up some options and pinning so that it'll scale my box for me. So I'm going to change width, depth, and height to changes. And now if I grab any one of these, notice how everything just snapped into place. Beautiful, except for this ugly little point. Hey, nice, lovely. All right, so let's come down here, and I'm gonna control click this, bring this up, and again, notice that the box is scaling. So that's great. Just wanted to bring your attention to that. Why did I get all awkward for this moment? All right, let's go and get the other corners. So if I try to get this corner, notice there's a big shadow, and it's kind of hard to see. Let's clean up a couple things. First off, let's get rid of the shadow. With the box selected, come over to 3D and turn off cast shadows. Ooh, yeah. Should I cut that out? Should I should I edit that out? They really ruined the pacing of this video, didn't it? Ah, well, we're rolling with it. Okay, so now that we've gotten rid of the shadow, let's right click, come to view, and turn off lit wireframes. And now we have some nice solid lines. And right click again, come to view, and turn on occluded wireframes. Occluded wireframes is only in versions higher than 1709, so there you go. Now that I can actually see what's going on, let's take a look at this little corner, kind of adjust the pin here and make any more adjustments here if you feel you gotta. And I don't feel like gotta. Oh, I do. All right, I don't feel like I gotta anymore. All right, so once you're happy with this, go to F4 and take a look at the side and notice that your cube is just randomly floating in space because why not? We're gonna have to move this down. So to move this down, some people might go ahead and immediately take this and then scale it up and try to match again. Don't do that. Select your box, go to scale, and turn on this little padlock so that you can scale from any point in space that you click. You can scale from locators, from space, or from cameras. Oh my god, did anybody hear that car honk? I think somebody crashed outside. I'm not even gonna look. I'm not even interested. I'm recording a Syntheyes tutorial. Okay, so I hope they're okay. So now scaling this box, we're going to go ahead and click and drag from the camera, and you can see that it remains the same from the camera's perspective. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'm going to drag from the camera in another view, and I'm going to hold control so I get a finer scale, and watch as that point goes and lands on the surface of the table. So technically the fit of this cube is actually pretty good, but this box is kind of lopsided and also a little bent, especially when the helmet slides inside. You'll notice that when we start actually doing the track. It's not going to be the most perfect thing, but hey, we're learning, and hopefully that's good enough. So for the sake of this GeoH thing, I want this flat. So I'm going to quickly flatten this. I'm going to look at it over here, but over here I'm going to rotate, hold control, and flatten it out. And is it flat the other way too? I can't tell. Yeah, it's pretty flat. Oh, wait. There we go, that's fine. Now you'll notice that it's not the most perfect fit in this view. And again, the box is lopsided. I just wanted this thing flat. Get off my back. So I'm going to just do a little tiny adjustment over here, and I'm not going for perfection. I really wish you would stop bothering me about that. There we go, that's fine. This is okay for what we're doing. Actually, I can hit this with a little scale right here. Let's trim this down just a little bit. There we go, I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. Okay, time for the main course. So we're going to turn this into a GeoH object. So click over to the GeoH track, which I guess I already did in between cuts. Wow. I'm very fast. So now that we're under GeoH, you can see over here we have a hierarchy view. This is very important. This is like the outliner in Maya or the layers thing in Blender or whatever. Here is where we're going to spend a lot of time. How do we turn this into an object that actually tracks? If you hit play, oh, nothing happens. You need to turn it into a GeoH object. So how do we do that? Let's open up GeoH toolbar. Where is it? Oh, that's right. When you click this, you actually have to be in perspective view. So hit F3 on your keyboard. So now that we're here, you can see that I don't have the menu still. Where is it? Oh, I got to click that again. I'm a little idiot. So once you have your GeoH track toolbar here open, let's go ahead and look at these first 5 options. So GeoH Surface Lasso through Lasso Paint and Airbrush. If you click any of these 4 and then shift click your object, it's going to turn it into a object. Down here at the bottom, you can see object 1. At the top, if we go to camera 1, you can... What? That's different. Oh, weird. Okay, so I swapped the views and now I can see this. So you have camera 1 and you have object 1, kind of like if you went up to shot, add object. Usually, if you're going to do this manually, you can go shot, add moving object, and you can change the solver mode from automatic to GeoH track. But Syntheyes went ahead and did it for us when we selected any mesh that we place and then just shift click with one of these 4 options. And I say these 4 options because if we do the top, GeoH create, and then shift click, it's going to place a joint wherever we want it to be. So right now, when I'm holding shift, it's based on the planar axes of the box. But if I let go, now it's sliding on the surface of the box. We don't want that. We want it at the center of the box. So let's just click any one of these 4, hit shift. There we go. So something I want to say real quick. GeoH objects in Syntheyes are kind of like joints and bones in other software. So this object here is kind of like the first joint in a rig. And right now you can see all the vertices of this box are solid red. That basically means it's a solid, like full weighting to this joint. So now that I've mentioned that, let me just go ahead and hit play. If I hit play here, what should happen is this should track. Now, why is it not tracking? Because if we look on the left side, you could see that we have transforms here and they're all highlighted blue. This means it's all locked up. Right now, what we're doing is we're also going to be using the mesh itself to track the box with no trackers. And that has to do with this little blue button up top. So this key button, this is for image-based tracking for this mesh. And this is a reference frame. So the box is taking basically a screenshot of this box on this frame. And it's going to look for the box at every frame and try to, line up this box to this. I said box too many times. Anyway, it's a reference frame, this key button. It's just like when you're tracking with 2D points and you have the key button. That's basically what it is. So I'm going to make sure that I'm back selected to object 1. By the way, you have to have your objects selected, not your box mesh, not your camera trackers or anything. You have to have your object selected. And by the way, let's name this right now. I'm going to call it box root. You don't have to call it root. You can call it box object or whatever you want. I like to treat it kind of like a rig. So I'm going to hit OK. So you want your box object selected. And now let's go ahead and free up a couple of these buttons and see what happens. First, remember, if I hit play, nothing happens. If I unlock translation and hit play, hey, it moves a little bit, but it doesn't rotate. So let's unlock the rotations. And now that I hit play, you could see it's basically an object solve. So this looks pretty cool, but it has kind of a dirty little secret. If I hit F4 and look at it in another view, you could see that it's free floating in and out of the table. That's not what we want. And this is where the beauty of GeoH tracking comes into play. So let's go back to the first frame, and with our object selected again, let's go ahead and lock the axes that we don't want to move. We don't want this box to move up and down off the table, so let's lock Y. In my case, I'm working Y up, so change this to whatever you need it to be. If it's Z for Blender or something, I don't know. So why did I get so winded saying that? Okay, so I'm gonna also look at the rotations, but first let's give it a play and see why I want to look at the rotations. I'm gonna hit play now. Why did I narrate that? What a lame thing to narrate. If I hit F4, take a look at the side view, you can see the box is still rotating in and out of the table, and that is gross. So let's go back to the first frame or back to normal, and we can slide these around to see what they do as well. So I could drag Z around if I wanted to. I can drag Y, and I can set all these initial positions. Let's look at pan. Pan, this is really the one that we're going to want right away. We don't want it to tilt or roll. So I'm going to lock, tilt, and roll, and then we can hit this with play. And now when I play, you can see it's doing what we want, but it's not flying through the table. Wow. Astonishing. We're kind of done this box portion of this video. If I hit play, notice it's going kind of slow. That's because every time I hit play, it's still tracking. So just like every tracker, how you would lock every tracker, you want to come up here and hit this little padlock up here and lock it. And yeah, and by the way, just like a tracker, if you started the shot halfway through and you have a little key here and your green's going forward, but you wanted to go backwards, you also have a reverse tracking direction right here. I'll probably make a video where I try to do some more setting explanations and stuff here later, but for now, this is what we got. Okay, so just to get something out of the way, I'm going to track a point on this shelfie thing. We're going to add the shelfie thing, and I'm going to track this point now so I don't have to do it later. So give me 1 second. Okay, so now we're going to add a GeoH object to act for this shelfie thing over here. So how do we do that? So when you're dealing with hierarchies in Syntheyes, and a hierarchy is, you know, it's just things grouped under other things. So if I had a joint here, I could have another joint that's parented underneath this joint here, or I should say object. So if I have this object, I can make another object and it's parented under this, but we can tell it to only move on the z-axis, which is this thing sliding out. So to do this, you're going to go to GeoH Create, and now hold Shift and left click so you can have a joint, and I'm going to just let go of Shift, so I'm dragging it around on the surface, and now I'm going to hold Control so it snaps to vertices, and I prefer to have this over at the front. By the way, if your object diamond is massive, come to Edit, Scene Settings, and turn object size down. Lovely. So now that I'm here, if I scrub, notice that that new object doesn't follow along. That's fine. Just hit play so that it actually, you know, does a little bit of, I don't know, magic underneath. Now it sticks, but it's not really doing anything because it's still all locked up. We want to put an object under this, a mesh under this object, and then have it driven forward by our tracker. I don't even need the object, but that's for another explanation another day. So let's go ahead and make a new object to represent this shelfie thing. I'm just going to go ahead to the left here, and you can see with our outliner, I'm going to select box, and I'm going to go to script, mesh, duplicate mesh. I don't know why it says guy one copy. Let's call it, I want to call it shelfie thing. Oh, I forgot thing. There we go. Shelfie thing. Love it. So now we have shelfie thing. I want to put it under object one. Actually, you know what? I forgot to mention I should name this too. Whenever you make a new joint, it's going to come up as another object parented under your previous object. So let's name this shelfie object. So I'm going to drag my shelfie thing under shelfie object. And now if I select shelfie thing and move this around, you can see the box is following. The box is also pitch black because we haven't weight painted anything. There's no need to do this. I'm just going to show you, but if you go to surface lasso and whatever, you can highlight and weight all of these points to your objects. Right now I selected like 1 or 2 and it highlighted everything, but that's because this mesh only has one object influencing it, which is a little bit confusing. I'm sorry, and I'm not going to explain why. Not for this video. So since we're not dealing with weight paints or anything for this, we're just going to add a tracker under this object, and we're going to add a seed point. So a little confusing, I know. Let's take this part slow. I'm going to go to a frame that I want to reference. I kind of like this frame here because it's close to this box and I can adjust it easily. I am going to select my inner box here. Now let's go to F4 just so I can see the view over here. I'm going to go to 3D and scale it down just a little bit, just so it comes up inside the box, easier to manage. Back to F3. And now, nope, back to GeoH track. And now if I select shelfie object and let's go to Z. Z is the only one that we're going to move here. So I'm going to hold control and just finally move this forward. You can see it's moving in and out. So I'm going to drag it until the edge matches up roughly right here. Again, we're not going for perfection for this video because it's near impossible. This box is deforming and I don't have enough time to do a whole crazier setup, which I wouldn't even do in Syntheyes for a shot like this. So I'm going to take that newest tracker that we did. If I hit F2 just to go confirm that this is the tracker. Oh, it turns out I don't have a tracker. I tracked this in a previous version and I reopened a file. So I lost that tracker that I did. So let me just redo it real quick. Okay, so I have my brand new tracker. I'm going to lock it and let's head back to GeoH track. So let's go back to that frame that I liked right here. There we go. And you can see my box is still there. So the tracker, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to drag it under Shelfie object. Any trackers that you put under here and project onto the mesh is going to drive this object. There's also one more thing, which you'll see in a second. So for Shelfie object, I'm going to go to the first frame and I'm going to unlock Z. So now that I've unlocked Z, you'll notice that nothing moved. Syntheyes would have actually automatically have snapped that box over here. And if I hit play, it doesn't work. It should already be working, but it's not. Wait, did I project this point already? Okay, so I forgot to what? Is things not working? Okay, so I'm going to select Shelfie object. And where is it? Let's lock this again. Okay, so I locked it and it returned back to where I put it. And now something I forgot to do is I forgot to select our tracker that we just added and we have to drop it on the mesh. I think I said that too. I'm going to come to track, drop on a mesh, and now we have a seed point. So I'm going to go to Shelfie object, head over to the first frame or whatever frame you want. And I'm going to unlock Z, which it looks like I already have unlocked here. And I have a keyframe up ahead here, so I'm going to right-click this here and clear that keyframe. So now it's unlocked for the whole thing. So notice, when I hit play, the box has started to match my tracker. But on the first frame, it has a little pop. And that's because we have a keyframe up here for image-based tracking. So I'm going to right-click this and clear that keyframe. And now you can see it's snapped on the first frame and it looks pretty nice. So we can't see our box right now because it's so pitch black and the lines are so thin. I'm just going to hit solver over here and do a little scrub and see what it looks like. So now that we have this, notice that it doesn't close all the way because my tracker actually cuts off right here. So how do we do that? Let's head back to GeoH and I'm going to go to the frame where it turns off and I'm going to turn that lock back on. So when that lock is back on, it animates on here and I can actually manually, whoops, let me undo that. I held shift and clicked this and it just flew off into space. So I'm going to hold control and drag this. So I can manually keyframe this. There we go. Before we take one last look at this, I just want to mention that, again, if we select our root object, we lock the padlock so that the object wasn't retracking all the time. Same goes with Shelfie object. We want to go and lock the padlock once we're done. And if you have any other objects, make sure they're all locked by the end. So let's hit solver over here just so we can view it like this. Give it a watch and looks like Matt. Oh my goodness. Why did you pop out of there? Told you not to pop out of places. Who told you you can freaking pop, dude? Why are you popping? Okay, let's go back to GeoH. Shelfie. Let's unlock. Wait. Why? Who said you can do this? I'm going to open up the padlock real quick at the first frame, and I'm going to hit play and just let it run through this. There, now that I've let it run through, it kind of reset itself to the parent. So now we're clean. And that is that. And notice that again, it's not perfect. It's not lining up, but that's because this flimsy box thing, his hand actually lifts it and bends it a little bit inside the casing. So it's not going to be great. And the setup to fix something like that is a lot more complex. And I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to. So that is it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. And yeah, we'll see how tutorials like this go in the future.